All right, shalom, shalom, shalom. It is Akazaki Yahoo, and I'm giving all praises and honor and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahweh Bashem Hamashiach Wamalak, Yahweh Shai, to the 12 tribes of Israel who are scattered to the four quarters of the earth. I say, Shalom, True King, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait to the day when the Most High brings us back together and we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation under the Most High power, under one covenant, back in our own land with a heart of flesh and no more a heart of stone, with our enemies, our adversaries, and all those who hate us under our feet. All praises to the Almighty Yah. Hallelujah.
So be it. Hallelujah.
Yes, indeed. Happy new moon, Israel. To the 12 tribes who are scattered, happy new moon, happy new month as we enter into this fourth month on the Hebrew Israelite calendar. All praises to the Most High. We are back for another video review on this new moon celebration. The first video we have from you comes to us from one of the newer channels we were checking out. This is Black Stories Untold. It is the slave revolt that almost destroyed America. As always, links are in the description box, so feel free to check out on their channel. But we're going to get to it and get through it, and all praise be to the Most High Yah. Here we go.
Hallelujah.
1831, Southampton County, Virginia, a place where your life was worth less than the cotton you picked, where reading a single word would get you into trouble, where your children could be sold away from you without a second thought. However, one day in 1831, something happened that would forever change the way slavery was seen in America. One man decided to stand up, to fight back against the horrific injustices that had kept his people in chains for centuries. His name was Nat Turner, and he was about to lead the deadliest slave revolt in American history. But Nat wasn't just any enslaved person. He was the most dangerous kind a plantation owner could imagine. He could read, he could write, and he believed he could talk to God. What Nat saw in that darkened sky wasn't just an eclipse. He saw a black man's hand covering the sun, a divine sign that would spark the most significant uprising in American history. But to understand how one man's prophecy turned into America's worst nightmare, we need to go back to the beginning. To understand the mind of an enslaved man who dared to fight against a system of slavery and white oppression. To understand Nat Turner. Before we continue, if you're passionate about uncovering the hidden history they don't teach in school, make sure to subscribe to Black Stories Untold. We do our best to bring you the real history that needs to be taught. Southampton County in the 1800s was a powder keg waiting to explode. This was a place where the enslaved outnumbered European Americans, and rebellion was waiting in the shadows. October 2nd, 1800. An enslaved woman named Nancy gives birth to a boy on Benjamin Turner's plantation. She names him Nat. The baby's father? Unknown. But Nat Turner was born different. From his earliest days, people knew there was something special about this child. He could apparently recall events from before his birth. He showed an intelligence that terrified and fascinated the others around him. Then, Benjamin Turner made a decision that would seal Virginia's fate. He allowed this enslaved child to learn how to read in the hopes that he would be a good preacher and help maintain order among the enslaved. However, in 1800s, Virginia, teaching an enslaved to read meant giving them power. A literate enslaved person was a direct threat to the entire system of slavery. They could write letters and spread dangerous ideas about freedom. But Benjamin Turner didn't just let Nat read. He also let him study Christianity while developing his mind and learning to write. Nat's natural intellect paired with his education turned him into a brilliant young man. Other enslaved people would say he had a quickness of apprehension that set him apart. He could outthink, outspeak, and outmaneuver anyone who crossed his path. But there was something else, something darker that kept his owners awake at night. Nat was having visions. Other slaves would eventually call him the prophet. As Nat was passed from owner to owner, Benjamin Turner, Samuel Turner, Thomas More, and finally John Travis, his reputation grew, his power grew, and his visions grew stronger. The tyrant owners of Southampton had created their own worst nightmare, a man with the intelligence to plan a rebellion, the charisma to lead one, and the divine conviction to see it through. All he would need was a sign from God. In 1821, young Nat vanished from his plantation. For 30 days, the overseers searched for him, and then something strange happened. He came back. Not because he was caught or he was starving. It was because God had ordered him to return to the service of my earthly master. The owners breathed a sigh of relief. They thought their educated, enslaved person finally learned his place. They were dead wrong. By 1825, Nat wasn't just reading the Bible. He was discovering his divine purpose. While other enslaved people were forced to work until their hands bled, Nat would disappear for days at a time, fasting, praying, searching for signs from God. His first vision came like a thunderbolt. He saw a great battle, opposing races locked in fierce conflict, angels and demons clashing in the Virginia sky. It was a prophecy of war. But the vision that would change everything came in 1828. Nat heard a voice, clear as day, telling him that the time was coming. The spirit that spoke to the ancient prophets was now speaking to a Virginia slave. Nat was waiting, watching, looking for one final sign from God. On February 12th, 1831, that sign appeared in the heavens. The eclipse, the black hand across the sun. 6 months later, on August 13th, something even stranger happened. The sun took on a bluish-green hue, another sign written in the heavens themselves. The message was clear to Nat, and the time for prayer was over. The time for blood had come. Nat knew the biggest problem with enslavement revolts. They always failed because too many people knew about them. The plans would leak. The whites would find out. He wasn't going to make the same mistake. He chose 4 men. 4 men he knew he could trust with his life. Henry, Hark, Nelson, and Sam. These were the men he had the greatest confidence in, hardened by years of bondage, and most importantly, ready to die for their freedom. But these 4 men weren't disciples. They were soldiers following a general. The plan was simple but brilliant. Don't stockpile weapons. Don't gather supplies. Don't do anything that could tip off the slave owners. Instead, in Nat's own words, we would slay my enemies with their own weapons. They waited, planned, prepared, and on the night of August 21st, 1831, everything came to a head. It started at the Travis plantation. 7 men gathered at Travis's cider press. Then they moved in absolute silence through the darkness. Joseph Travis, the man who thought he owned Nat, never saw them coming. The rebels caught the family in their sleep. No chance to raise an alarm. No chance to escape. The first blood of the revolution was spilled in the dead of night. Then, something happened that would set the pattern for the entire revolt. An enslaved man named Austin, who lived on the same small farm as Nat, saw what was happening. He hadn't been part of the original plan or scheming, but when he saw his chance at freedom, he took it. The army of 7 became 8. By sunrise, they abandoned stealth for open warfare. At Elizabeth Turner's plantation, Austin raised a gun and fired the rebellion's first shot. That gunshot signaled the start of full-scale revolt. Nat split his forces, one group on horseback, one on foot, a military tactic that made them twice as deadly and twice as fast. At Catherine Whitehead's plantation, 27 enslaved people watched as Nat's army surrounded the house. The rebels expected them all to join, to finally seize their chance at freedom, but only one did. In actuality, Many slaves feared what would happen if they joined the rebellion. It was their only chance at freedom, true, but also a scary thought for a people who had only known servitude. What happened next would be seared into Virginia's memory forever. For the first and only time in the revolt, Nat, the prophet, the general, the man who had planned it all, took a life with his own hands. Margaret Whitehead fell before him, her passing marking the point of no return. The rebels left no survivors at the Whitehead plantation. Word spread, and panic gripped Southampton County. But the worst was yet to come. At Levi Waller's farm, they found a schoolhouse. Waller had heard the rebels were coming. In desperation, he gathered all the children together in one place, thinking he could protect them. That decision would haunt Southampton County forever. When Nat's army arrived, what followed was the single deadliest moment of the uprising. Waller himself escaped into the woods, leaving behind his wife and 10 children to face the revolution he had helped create. None survived. As they moved from plantation to plantation, something extraordinary happened. Their army grew. 7 became 20. 20 became 40. By sunrise, over 70 men had joined the uprising. The plantation owners' property had turned against them. The rebels moved like a storm across Southampton County. Then, they headed straight for the town of Jerusalem. Their target was the armory. With those weapons, they could arm hundreds more people who believe in their cause. But something else happened during this march. Something that revealed what this revolt was really about. Nat and his army spared the poor whites, the ones who thought no better of themselves than they did the Negroes. This wasn't blind vengeance. This was about destroying a system that was built on the lie that some men were born to own, and others were born to be owned. In less than 24 hours, 55 European Americans were dead. Men, women, children. But on the horizon, an army of militiamen was gathering, and they were looking for revenge. While Nat's army was moving towards Jerusalem, they made a crucial stop at James Parker's farm. The main force went to the enslaved quarters to recruit more fighters, and Nat left a small group of rebels by the gate as lookouts. But that's when Alexander P. Pete's militia caught up with them. The militia struck fast, overwhelming the rebels at the gate. They thought they'd caught Nat's army off guard, split and vulnerable. But they were wrong. Like a storm breaking, Nat's main force exploded from the enslavers' quarters. The rebels crashed into Pete's men with such fury that the militia broke ranks and ran. The hunters had become the hunted. High on the taste of victory, Nat's men pursued their fleeing enemies into the darkness. And then they ran straight into a trap. Other militiamen, drawn by the sound of gunfire, had been waiting. In the chaos that followed, Nat's army shattered. The ambush scattered Nat's forces into the Virginia wilderness. Through the day and into the night, he gathered his surviving men at Thomas Ridley's plantation. By nightfall, 40 of his soldiers had made it back. But something had changed. The crushing defeat at Parker's farm had left them stripped of their confidence. In the dark hours before dawn, their own sentries returning with reports of militia movements sparked panic. The rebels mistook their own men for the enemy. In their panic, they fled to Samuel Blunt's plantation, thinking it was abandoned. But it wasn't. Blunt and 5 others were waiting. The rebels broke, and this time, there would be no coming back together. For the first time since the revolt began, Nat lost control of his army completely. What came next wasn't war. It was a hunt. 3,000 men soldiers, militia, and vigilantes poured into Southampton County. They weren't looking for rebels anymore. They were looking for revenge. A witness named Nelson Allen wrote home about what he saw. Every man is armed with a gun by his bed nights and in the field at work. A great many of the blacks have been shot, their heads taken off, stuck on poles at the forks of roads. Over 100 black people lost their lives, most of them innocent. The whites tortured suspects, burning their feet until they confessed. One man nearly had his foot burnt off before they realized He wasn't even part of the revolt. The conflict was so extreme that even a European American newspaper editor had to admit it was hardly inferior in barbarity to the atrocities of the insurgents. It got so bad that on August 28th, General Richard Epps had to step in. His order was clear. Any person who harmed an enslaved person for any cause whatever would face military punishment. The random retaliations eventually slowed, but soon came the trials for all those who had dared fight for their freedom. August 31st, 1831. Southampton County Courthouse fell silent as the trials began. The judges knew the world was watching. They crafted a careful performance of justice, appointing defense attorneys, demanding proper charges, even dismissing cases that lacked evidence. But beneath this veneer of fairness lay an inevitable conclusion. These slaves who had dared to challenge white superiority were doomed. 30 enslaved people faced grave sentences. For 12 of them, mercy came in an unexpected form. The court noted their youth, their reluctance, their minimal involvement. Governor Floyd agreed to spare them. For the other 19, the gallows cast long shadows. As summer faded into autumn, the executions transformed Southampton County's landscape. The grim warnings of the condemned appeared one by one along the county roads, grim markers of American vengeance. But with each passing week, one question burned in every mind. Where was Nat? While his followers met their fate at the gallows, Nat had vanished into the wilderness. Near the birthplace of his rebellion, he carved out a hidden sanctuary. A hole in the earth, concealed by pine needles and fence rails. For 6 weeks, he lived on the edge of survival, sustaining himself with rotted food and rainwater, clinging to the last threads of freedom. Then came the dog. On October 30th, the animal caught the scent of meat from Nat's hideout. It returned, leading 2 black hunters to the prophet's sanctuary. When Nat emerged from his hole, he begged them to keep his secret. Their retreating footsteps told him all he needed to know. He fled, but the Virginia wilderness had no more shelter to offer. The next day, a farmer named Benjamin Phipps found the most wanted man in the South. The iron bars of Jerusalem jail couldn't contain Nat's voice. He spoke freely about his revolution, his visions, his divine purpose. A local lawyer named Thomas R. Gray recognized something valuable in those words. For 3 days, he transcribed every detail of Nat's story, racing to copyright the confessions of Nat Turner before his subject could meet the hangman. November 11th, 1831. Nat's last sunrise. He walked to the gallows with his head held high, but even death wouldn't satisfy Virginia's appetite for vengeance. They defiled his body, dissected it, and carved pieces of his skin into trophies of their victory. But while Nat's body lay in pieces, his spirit was tearing Virginia apart. The state legislature moved swiftly, driven by fear. They banned all education for black people, whether enslaved or free. They restricted gatherings. They required ministers to oversee every black church service. Knowledge, they had learned, was a weapon more dangerous than any sword. Then came a moment that would have been unthinkable before Southampton County. In Richmond, Thomas Jefferson's grandson rose before the Virginia legislature. He proposed what many had secretly considered but none had dared to speak: gradual emancipation, the complete end of enslavement in Virginia. But of course, the vote failed. Virginia wouldn't consider freeing its enslaved people again until the Civil War forced its hand. But something fundamental had shifted thanks to Nat Turner. The South's response to Nat's rebellion revealed the truth about their system. It could only be maintained through absolute control and terror. Meanwhile, in the North, a different story was taking shape. William Lloyd Garrison's newspaper, The Liberator, painted Nat's rebellion in a different light. Here was proof of what abolitionists had long claimed. Beneath the South's gentle facade of happy enslaved people and benevolent masters lay a powder keg of resistance. For the next 30 years, Southampton County haunted America's dreams. The South learned one lesson: control through fear. The North learned another: enslavement itself was the true struggle. Today, a bronze marker stands in Southampton County. People still debate Nat Turner's legacy: murderer or freedom fighter, terrorist or revolutionary. But beyond these labels lies a simpler truth. In August 1831, an enslaved preacher shattered the myth of the contented slave. He forced America to see its great sin in all its harsh reality. The South's desperate attempt to prevent another Southampton County only hastened their nightmare's arrival. With each new law, each new restriction, each new act of terror, they pushed the nation closer to civil war. Nat Turner's rebellion sent shockwaves through America, proving that the fight for Black liberation would never be silenced. But his uprising was just the beginning. Over a century later, another man would rise. This time, not with a sword, but with a shotgun and a political vision. Huey P. Newton and the Black Panther Party took the fight for freedom to the streets, challenging the very foundation of American power. His story?
Kang, Huey P. Newton. Shout out to that brother. Rest in peace, King. Rest in power. Also to the wonderful brother Nat Turner. Rest in power, King. Man, all praises to the Most High for these brothers who are not afraid to take it to the adversary, to the one who would cause conflict with our people, and to the brothers who were not afraid to battle them and take it to them head on. Praises to the Most High. And I should have known this was going to be Nat Turner, but I honestly didn't know which one it was going to be. But good stuff indeed. I didn't realize that he spared some of the people, that he spared the
Con.
people, the poor people. I didn't realize that. So that's interesting information that he spared them and didn't take them. I was under the impression he took everything that wasn't that didn't have woolly hair had to go. But it's lucky if that was the case. If that was not the case, so but all praises to the Most High. That's all I got. I lose you. Still with me out? Ken and I may have a little technical difficulty here. All right, we'll give him about half a minute, and then we'll move on to the next video. Can you hear me, King? Yeah, he's doing something. He's working on it. Yeah,
Can you hear me, Con? All right.
there we go. There we go. Yeah, we got you out.
Okay, Con. I was just gonna add that that was new information that I'd heard also about him sparing some of the people that he encountered. A lot of people might have, this or that to say about, the brother. Would you feel the same way about Moshe, who saw the oppression of his people and rose up and did something about it? Or, and successfully, led his people out of bondage. We can read in the book of Judges how we had a number of people to come and rescue, sent by the Most High. I won't go as far to say that, Nat Turner, was sent by the Most High. I think he just saw the oppression of his people and probably equated that with the Israelites, and perhaps thought that it was our time. And perhaps he, growing up, heard stories about how some of our people had run away from, and fought their way for freedom in Florida. Being the Gullah Seminole people. So, were those people wrong for fighting for their independence and for their freedom? I think, in the end, we will see that, perhaps, the story is not being portrayed correctly by, the masses, but, you know, I think we probably view it a little bit different, but I'll yield there.
All praises to the Most High. Yeah. Praises to the again. I know Nat Turner can't hear us. We hear now, and he was there then. But rest in power, King, because we appreciate the work that you did. And here we are, all these years later, still talking about it. So you did a great thing, and praises to the Most High for uh, revving the brother up to do what he did. And I I respect that man immensely. I didn't know it was gonna be him, but I respect him immensely for what he did. So we'll go ahead to the next video. Next video we have comes to us from Battlefield Africa, or it should be Battlefield Kebulon. And what it is the battle of the Fulani. Historians won't talk about. So the Fulani versus the Yoruba. Am I saying that right? Is it Yoruba?
Khan, Yoruba.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking, oh man, I messed it up. All right. As always, links in the description box. Feel free to check it out. But let's get to it and get through it. All praises to the Most High once again.
Nestled in the southwestern region of present-day Nigeria stood Ogbomosho, fierce, proud, and unbroken. Once a refuge for the displaced, it would become more than a city. It would become a defining symbol of Yoruba resilience against the advancing tide of the Sokoto Caliphate's expansionist jihad. From the ashes of the old Oyo Empire to the iron advance of the Fulani cavalry, this is not just a story of conquest. It is a tale of betrayal, resistance, and survival. In a time when empires clashed and warriors rose with muskets and machetes, Ogbomosho became a battlefield, a sacrifice, and a symbol of what was to come. In the early 1800s, the mighty Oyo Empire, once the hammer of Yorubaland, began to crack. Internal strife, rebellious vassals, and the collapse of central authority all conspired to weaken its once unshakable grip. But as Oyo stumbled, a new threat emerged from the north. The Fulani Jihad, led by Usman Dan Fodio, a firebrand reformer determined to spread Islamic authority across the region. The jihad swept through the Hausa kingdoms like a storm, toppling emirs and replacing thrones with turbans. One by one, powerful cities fell: Kano, Zaria, and Katsina. And then came Ilorin. Ilorin had once been a Yoruba border town under Oyo's control, but behind its walls, betrayal was brewing. The Are Onakakanfo, Oyo's mighty military general, Afonja, in a moment of desperation, invited Fulani warriors to help him break free from Oyo's grip. It was a fatal mistake. The Fulani took the city, and Afonja paid with his life. A story for another day. Ilorin became an emirate of the Sokoto Caliphate, a dagger thrust into the heart of Yorubaland. And from this Islamic stronghold, the raids began, merciless, strategic, and relentless, targeting Yoruba towns one after another. The next target was Ogbomosho. As Ilorin fell under the green banner of the Caliphate, waves of terror swept south. Yoruba towns, once vibrant with markets and music, were now haunted by fear. Towns like Offa and Arisa burned. Survivors fled, and many ran to one place, Ogbomosho. Ogbomosho stood like a stone in a rushing flood, the last Yoruba stronghold before the path to Ibadan, Ile-Ife, and beyond. The city swelled with refugees. Farmers became fighters, hunters turned into warriors. Ogbomosho braced itself no longer just a sanctuary, but a city preparing for war. The 18th century in Yorubaland has been rightly called a century of conflict, a time when the land was torn by waves of insurrections, shifting alliances, and the constant thunder of war drums. From the north to the south, east to west, war tore through the land like wildfire. No corner of Yorubaland was spared from the chaos, no city untouched by the cry of battle. The invasion from the north was led chiefly by Ilorin, a Yoruba city turned Fulani stronghold, now under the command of jihadists driven by a singular vision: to dip the Quran and the sword into the sea. It was a euphemism, a chilling metaphor for a campaign of total domination, to overrun all of Yorubaland by force of arms, to Fulanize and Islamize every town, every village, every soul that stood in their path. It was driven by something deeper, an inordinate ambition cloaked in religion but rooted in imperialism and ruthless expansionism. Ogbomosho, positioned along the direct route from Ilorin to the southern coast, became the obvious target, one the caliphate could not ignore. To reach the sea, the jihadist had to break through Ogbomosho, and so the town found itself caught in the path of empire and destiny. To the Fulani, Ogbomosho was more than a stronghold. It was a threat, a defiant city standing in the way of conquest. And for that, it was marked for fire. Ogbomosho must be conquered. Inside the walls of Ogbomosho, they knew it was only a matter of time before the Fulanis came calling. As the threat loomed closer, Ogbomosho looked beyond its walls. They reached out to Ibadan, then the undisputed military titan of Yorubaland, for aid in halting the advancing jihadist tide. At that time, Ibadan was under the iron grip of Iba Oluyole, a warrior feared as much as he was respected, and out of deep resentment toward Ogbomosho, Iba Oluyole refused the plea. No reinforcements came, no warriors marched. Ogbomosho would face the storm alone. A few months earlier, during the Batedo War, a brutal conflict driven by territorial expansionism between Ibadan and Ijaye, the two leading military powers in Yorubaland, both sides had turned to Ogbomosho for support. As far as Ogbomosho was concerned, Ijaye was fighting a just cause, and so the town pledged its warriors to Ijaye's side, an act of loyalty born from conviction. But that decision enraged Iba Oluyole. To him it was betrayal, and he would not forget it. Still burning from what he saw as betrayal, Iba Oluyole sent a message, calm but cold, to the emir of Ilorin. Ibadan would not interfere with any hostilities against Ogbomosho, so long as its trade remained untouched. But he gave a clear warning. Any threat to Ibadan's interest would mean war. With Ibadan's silence echoing across the land, Ilorin's army was poised to strike. In the palace of the Sound, Idowu Bolanta Adegun, the war council of Ogbomosho, assembled. Tension hung thick in the air, news of betrayal, the threat of invasion, and the silence from former allies weighed heavily on the gathered chiefs. They concluded that if none of their brothers and friends will come to their aid, if death must come, let it find them on their feet, not on their knees, to war. The war drums sounded. There were no more debates, no more warnings. The time for decisions had passed. Ogbomosho is at war. Sacred oaths were taken beneath the moonlight at ancestral shrines, binding men to fate and to one another. Under the strong leadership of Saun Idowu Bolanta Adigun, a storm of Yoruba resistance gathers, and their message echoed through the dust and drums. This city must not fall. As the thunder of impending war rolled across the land, Ogbomosho stood ready. Hunters gripped their charms. Blacksmiths set down their hammers and picked up their blades. Warriors tightened their belts. These were just mere farmers, hunters, blacksmiths, ordinary hands shaped by soil and flame. But in the face of invasion, they became something more. They became defenders. Behind the city's earthen walls together they waited for the Fulanis to come. In the distance, the metal heads of spears caught the sun, glistening like stars on the move. An infantry force was marching toward Ogbomosho. Saun Idowu stood tall, his eyes fixed on the advancing ranks. And then, like wind through dry grass, the word spread. Ijaye had answered the call. A surge of hope swept through the city. Hearts lifted, eyes filled with tears, and warriors tightened their grips. Ogbomosho would not stand alone. The gates of Ogbomosho opened wide, and through the rising dust, the warriors of Ijaye marched in, proud, fierce, and ready for battle. Their footsteps thundered against the earth, their war chants rising like a second heartbeat over the city. From atop the battlement, Saun Idowu gazed down at his warriors. For a fleeting moment, his solemn mask cracked, replaced by a rare, quiet smile. It wasn't just relief that stirred within him. It was pride, deep, unspoken, and earned. A few days later, it began at dawn. Then they came. The Fulani forces emerged like ghosts through the mist, mounted warriors, swords and spears gleaming in the sun. And at the head of the Fulani charge rode none other than Balogun Ali, the warlord of Ilorin. To his warriors, he was commander. To Ogbomosho, he was the storm itself. The Fulani cavalry tore through the outskirts of Ogbomosho with terrifying speed. Their horses thundered across the red earth, kicking up dust like smoke from a burning world. They encircled the city. On open ground, the Fulani cavalry were unbeatable, swift as lightning, striking with brutal precision, ruthless and exact. And the people of Ogbomosho knew this. Behind closed gates and towering earthworks, they found a fragile sense of safety. But to breach the gates was never truly Balogun Ali's plan. His weapon was not brute force, it was time. His strategy, blockade, surround the city, cut off its lifelines, let hunger do what swords could not. Driven by the fury of starvation, the people of Ogbomosho would be forced to do the unthinkable. Come out from behind their walls and face the Fulani cavalry in the open, where they stood no chance. It was a slow battle, a cruel war. And the Fulanis were determined to reduce the town by starvation before finishing off the remnants by conquest. Day and night, the Fulanis taunted them, trumpets blaring beyond the walls, war cries piercing the darkness. They circled like vultures, daring Ogbomosho to break. But the Yorubas stood their ground. They would rather die within their city walls than kneel in surrender. The Fulanis were relentless, disciplined, determined, and driven by a fire that would not die. Horsemen galloped relentlessly around the walls, ensuring a complete barricade across all 5 entrances into the city. The Ijaye warriors on the battlement kept watch. No one in, no one out. The noose was tightening, and Ogbomosho was trapped within it. The Fulani forces set fire to every farm that surrounded the city. Fields of yam, maize, and millet consumed in smoke and flame. Every crop, Every life-sustaining plant was destroyed. It was not just war, it was starvation by design. The message was clear. Ogbomosho must capitulate. The siege was not just meant to conquer the city, it was meant to break its spirit. In a final act of mockery, the Fulanis gathered fresh fruits and heaped them into a mound before the city's main gate. From behind the walls, the Yorubas watched in silence, as birds feasted on the bounty they could no longer reach. The siege dragged on for 4 agonizing weeks, 4 weeks without food, 4 weeks without rest. Inside the walls, famine took hold. Cries of hunger echoed through the compounds. Mothers clutched their children. Warriors clenched their jaws. The air grew thin with desperation. Ogbomosho was starving, but still unyielding. While the siege raged on, the warriors of Ogbomosho and Ijaya watched and waited. Through exhaustion and hunger, they observed a pattern. At a certain time of the moon, a short window, the raids would stop. The enemy's drums fell silent. The trumpets ceased. A stillness blanketed the fields. They knew what it meant. At that hour, the Fulani warriors were asleep, vulnerable, unprepared, and in that quiet window, they saw their only chance. The Ogbomosho War Council was summoned without delay. Time was slipping away, and so was hope. Ultimately, they devised a bold and tactical offensive to break the siege. For men of valor, Ogbomosho and Ijaye had no shortage. 4 divisions were swiftly assembled, each one forged with urgency and precision. Every division was led by 2 seasoned warlords, Ogunrumbi and Bameke, Areago Ori Oro, alongside Abes Obiriyeku, Saun Adigan himself flanked by Lalud, Oluya Agbandugu and Lagbedu. Their mission was clear: strike the enemy from 4 directions, swift, silent, devastating. Under the cloak of night, they moved like shadows, silent, focused, unseen. The Ijaye warriors stayed behind to defend the city. They knew the terrain intimately. The forests, the hidden footpaths, the sacred groves where spirits whispered and warriors watched. This was their land, and on it, they held the advantage. Every tree was an ally, every shadow a weapon. The night belonged to them. They took out the sentinels. The Yorubas took their positions and waited. Then the signal was given. A sharp call in the dark. A sign the enemy did not expect, but would never forget. From every front, the warriors of Ogbomosho surged forward, fierce. They fell upon the Fulani like thunder in the night. Steel met flesh. War cries split the silence, and chaos exploded across the enemy camp. It was mayhem. The Fulanis were cut down mercilessly. The Fulanis fled in a rowdy and precipitate manner, disoriented. Through the chaos, through dust, fire, and the falling of his men, Balogan Ali slipped away. Wounded in pride, but not in flesh. The warlord had escaped, but the defeat was undeniable. The siege was broken, but the cost? The Fulani camp ran red with blood. What began as a siege ended in slaughter. It was written in the hollow cheeks of the survivors, and in the silence of those who never returned. It was carved into memory, into a story that would never die. Balogan Ali returned to Ilorin, having failed to break the spirit of a people, yet still hailed as a war hero by the emirate, feared by many, admired by some, and remembered as the man who almost brought Ogbomosho to its knees, but didn't. For Ogbomosho's victory was more than a battle won. It was defiance immortalized, a message etched in blood and dust. This land would not fall. The victory sent ripples across Yorubaland. The town's confidence soared, its will fortified. The Fulani, relentless in their ambition, now faced something they could not conquer, resolve. Today the walls are gone. The drums are quiet, but the unbreakable, it remains in the soil, in the songs, in every fruit that ripens, uneaten by birds.
Right.
Please
All right.
subscribe to our channel.
Again, to the Most High. The Yoruba able to defeat the Fulani, turn back the scourge of Islam, and send them packing when they were shut into their own place, and their patience served them well, even in the face of hunger, starvation, of famine, because they had cut off the supply of food that was coming into the city. And the Yoruba was still able, and by the way, those are the Bantu Israelite Yoruba. That's who the Yoruba are, Bantu Israelites. But their relentlessness was able to get them over, get them to that next level, and realizing that the Jokers was taking a nap, he was able to capitalize fully on that and get them on up out of there. Praise to the Abba. That's all I got on that. Go ahead, Akeem.
Khan, as you said, the Yoruba, known to be Israelites. So the Fulani, it's a little bit different, So the Fulani, they spread from the east coast of Africa or Kebulon all the way to the west coast of Kebulon. So those Fulanis that reside in the northeastern part of Kebulon, they're not E1. Most of them are not E1B1A. Now you still find that gene, it's amongst them, but it's not as prevalent as it is with the Fulani who live in west of Kebulon. So what you had here is two Israelite kingdoms, fighting against each other. It's ironic because a few days ago, or maybe about a week ago, there were 200 Christians killed in Nigeria, and they were killed by Islamic, what is being called Islamic extremists from the north. And this would be your Fulani Hausa people who are, still today, some would say continuing a jihad that was started 200 years ago. Right. But all praises to the Most High that we see so much going on in the world, and we can read it in the scriptures, and we know that it says that look up, because your salvation draws nigh when you begin to see all of these things. So all praise to the Most High for all that He's done, all that He's doing, and all that He will do. Hallelujah.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Before we close this out, I did see a report that the young brother, uh, Carmelo Anthony,
Oh, is that the brother in Texas?
yeah, kind, they did indict this brother on first degree murder. So they're trying everything they can to hang him completely out in the murder of that heathen bully who would seek to cause harm to him, and he simply defended himself with what he had available. And they have now indicted him on first degree murder. So that is a travesty of an injustice, but that doesn't, just because they got the indictment doesn't mean that they're going to be able to get him convicted. We're going to trust that the Most High protect this brother, this young brother, if it be His will, and this brother be able to walk free uh, by the power of the Most High. Go ahead.
You know, it's definitely. I've been checking out the story. I was unaware of that. I thought that they were already charging him, and he was home on house arrest. So that's news to me. And our prayers will be with the young brother and his family.
Here, let me throw it on the screen real quick. Is this there it is, Carmelo Anthony, a teen who admitted to stabbing and killing fellow high school athlete, track meet star, or track meet in Texas, has been indicted by a grand jury with first degree murder. It comes out of local attorney evidence to a grand jury, asking jurors to uphold first degree murder. Now, first degree murder that's capital murder, so they probably gonna seek the death penalty for this young brother here. But
You know, I I'm not sure, but I wouldn't think so. I think the defense or the prosecutors would be jeopardizing the trial if they did do that, because, well, I mean, this is America. So I mean, they've executed how old was the brother in South Carolina that they
exactly
executed?
15, George Stinney. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, and the reason I say that is because while they go capital murder, they could have went with second degree murder, which carries a life sentence. Uh, but they went first degree murder, which tells me that they're going for a capital case, and they're gonna try to make an example of this young brother. But they better. Uh, and they in Dallas.
I'm not sure what part of Texas they're in. I think it might be a suburb of Dallas.
Okay. Well, the reason I say that is because Most High will. I believe the Most High is going to move in this case, and I pray so. And if not, the Most High is still able. But I believe He's going to stack the jury in the favor of this young brother here, and he's going to be able to come away with a not guilty verdict, and he's going to be able to walk out the courtroom with his head held high, and hopefully he'll give praise to the Abba who put that in place for him. I hope. If not, then maybe he'll be ready to learn about the Abba who put this in place for him and got him out of this ordeal. And if, like I said, if the Most High don't do it, don't mean He's not able. It just means that it wasn't His plan for this particular situation, and He wanted us to see this and get PO'd because they charged this young brother with first degree murder because he killed this cat who, in self defense, who was bullying and attacking him, and that should have been self defense. So, worst case, that should have been no. It should have been no charge, but worst case, it should have been was manslaughter and probably second degree. on the manslaughter because um, he was self-defense. It was self-defense. So, but like I said, we're gonna be in prayer for the brother, and we're gonna continue to lift up the nation of Israel in prayer and pray for the best and for the restoration of our people. We'll go ahead and close this on out. This new moon celebration. We do this for a specific purpose. Why do we do this? Romans chapter 10 and verse 1. Brother, my heart's desire and prayer to her Abba for Israel is that they might be saved. We want to see our people saved. We want to see our people set free. We want to see our people restored to prominence as the Most High have promised to us. And how are we going to do it? We're going to do it by, well, number one, keeping the faith and the belief in Hamashiach, the Messiah, and his return to return us to prominence as the Most High have promised. And Ecclesiastes, number two, Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. It is so very important to understand that in the conclusion of the whole matter, we are to fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, all the dust is settled and all the smoke is cleared, we will be judged on whether we have feared the Most High and kept his commandments. Why? Because this is the whole duty of man. I am your Akazaki Yahu, joined by my most esteemed Akinanaya, giving all praises, honor, and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahweh, Bashem, Hamashiach, Wamalak Yahweh Shai, and to the 12 tribes of Israel who are scattered to the four corners of the earth. I say shalom, wa baruchim, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait to the day when the Most High brings us back together and we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation, under the Most High power, under one covenant, back in our own land with a heart of flesh and no more a heart of stone, with our enemies, our adversaries, and all those who hate us under our feet. Until that day come, shalom, family.
Shalom, Mr. Pekah.
All praises to the Most High. Praise you, Abba Yah, Kwam Yasha'Allah,
Kwam Yashala.
and Barak Hashem Yahweh.